Hello, and welcome to The Power of Your Story. I am your host, LaQuita Parks, and I am so excited to have a special guest here with me today. Listen, today has been a day. You hear me? Today has been a day. I have been up since about 6 a.m., and I've had so many meetings today, I don't even remember how many I had. Some that happened, some that was supposed to happen, that was not supposed to happen, some spur of the moment calls. It
Mhm.
has been a day. I called myself trying to take a little nap, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing, and I didn't have sense enough to not answer. So it has been it has been a day. So I am your host, LaQuita Parks, and I am the CEO and founder of Pay Pro V Publishing. And Pay Pro V means pain, progress, victory, because I believe without pain, there is no progress. And without progress, there can be no victory. So I help people take their stories from a thought to a realization because everybody, 100% of everybody living and dead, has a story. And listen, if you have tuned in, if you're watching us live, if you're listening in, we have a show for you today because this woman has an amazing story, one that will shock you and entertain you.
Mhm.
And she is a powerhouse. And she is also, or was also, a candidate for the presidential. She was a presidential candidate. Was it 2020?
16 and 20, actually.
2016 and 2020, this woman had the audacity to run for president.
Mhm.
What?
Mhm.
So we're going to get into that. So I want to introduce Charmin. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the power of your story because we believe everybody has a story. And I'm so happy to meet you. Now, I've heard her voice, but this is the first time actually meeting through Zoom, but face to face. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate you.
Oh, awesome. I appreciate you too. So tell us about yourself and then I'll tell them how we actually met and why I had to have you on my show. So tell us about you, where you're from, what do you do?
Well, just a regular person. I am an author. I'm a mom. I'm an advocate. I'm an aspiring politician. I chase my dream. That's what I'm in the process of for the last couple of years now. I worked in financial services. I've been a bill collector, a mortgage underwriter, and a fraud investigator. I have been a military spouse. I've been an enlisted spouse, a commissioned spouse, and a retired.
I don't know what happened. I think we froze. Charmin, looks like we froze. Maybe we're having some technical difficulties and she'll come back in a minute. So, Charmin has an amazing story. As I was going through and getting ready to prepare for Charmin's show, I did not realize she was a 2016 presidential candidate, but she was a 2020 presidential candidate. And she has written a book called Taming the Tita. And so we just lost Charmin, and we will get her back in just a moment. But I want to share her bio with you. So if you are not familiar with her, go and look her up. Her name is Charmin Smith, Sharmin Smith, and she has an amazing bio. And we met through the book slam, and the book slam is on Clubhouse, and people are able to come on, and I hosted the book slam the other night, but people are able to come on and they are able to read a portion of their book. So if you have a book, if you are author and you want to be on a platform where you can share your story, you get a few minutes to read and get feedback, and that's so important. Getting that live feedback. So until we get Charmin back, I want to share with you her bio. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. So she is the author of Taming the Tita. Now, Tita, Tida. Now, I had no idea what a Tita was. So I had to look up Tita. And it's simply a woman, and it's a Hawaiian word, and it's typically a woman who has who has a voice, basically a woman who has a voice and who's not afraid to use her voice. So her book is called Taming the Tita, and so I want to share her biography. And it says Sharman Smith is on a mission to share her wisdom gained through her unique experiences. Shining a light in the darkness that exists in some of society is her calling. She is an abortion survivor and was raised by a mother who did not want her. She shares her story to help other people who have dealt with family trauma get through their pain. When she reached adulthood, she became a financial services expert. Sharman has met many teams of people in the industry and is sought after for her experience in the financial industry. Due to childhood trauma, Sharman was diagnosed with PTSD. Eventually leaving the financial industry, Sharman took up writing as a form of therapy. She launched the book Taming the Tita. Hey,
I don't.
welcome back.
My internet dropped out hard. My my firewall's blinking, making colors. I don't know what happened.
It's okay. Hey, this is real life. This is
It really
live.
is.
You can't make this stuff up.
Thank
So
you.
I just started reading your bio with the audience. And now that you're back, I'll just finish sharing this part of your bio. And I just encourage them to go to your website and research you and look you up and follow you. So I'm on the part where it says she launched the book Taming the Tita in 2014. The book is meant to uplift and encourage other survivors to reclaim their lives. So I'm going to stop right there because I was trying to explain to them what a tita was, so, or what a tita is. So since you're back, I think that you can explain that. So tell us why that title, Taming the Tita.
You know, the title came to me long before the idea of the book ever did. I was living in Hawaii in from 19 or I'm sorry, from 2010 to 2012. And a tita is a Hawaiian word, and it's a word the locals use to explain a kind of an aggressive, angry looking woman that you don't want to mess with, right? She will reach out and touch you. The Tita is a tough woman, and you don't mess with her, right? And I like the idea of Shakespeare's Taming the Shrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
He proved that he could tame a shrew, but I like to think that I proved that you don't tame a Tita. A
I
Tita
know
will
that's
tame
right.
you.
I
Look.
know that's right.
A- And as I see the rise of women everywhere and our rights are being taken away, we are fighting for every inch that we have gained over the last several centuries. And
Mhm.
we've had an explosion of rights in the last 75 years. We cannot give up an inch of them. And the only way we're going to keep them is if we fight. So I want all the women to unleash their titas.
Unleash your Tita.
Yeah, let them.
I like what you said before your internet went out. You said you're chasing your dream.
Mhm.
And that's important. So as a Tita, you chase your dreams, what your beliefs are, whatever you believe and whatever you want to do. The only thing that stops you is you. I had people to say when I started my publishing company, you can't do that. And
Mhm.
I'm quite stubborn, so I could be a Tita. I could be
Yes,
a Tita.
ma'am.
I'm quite stubborn. It's like, well, why can't I do that? What, they put it really nicely and say things like, "You're doing too much,"
Mm.
or you're doing too much, or because I have some medical conditions, I should be sitting docile.
I
So
was told to take up knitting.
really,
Because of my health issues, I was told to take up knitting.
really,
You
hmm,
know, I'm sure there are a lot of people who really enjoy knitting.
you're
And
right.
if that is a hobby I choose to pick up in the future, then that will be a hobby I choose to pick up in the future. But in the meantime, I have other things I'd like to work on. Thank you for
Absolutely.
your help, your advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm always told to, you just need to rest. What not knowing or not understanding that I have a condition that when you lay still or when things touch, it hurts. So laying doesn't necessarily feel good.
Nope,
So
it sure
you
does
keep
not.
going and you keep moving. So I'm a titter. So thank
Good,
you. Thank you for
good,
helping me know that I can
good.
release my titter.
Yes, unleash it. And all the
Mhm,
people that aren't chasing their dream, I I want you to know that I know what that pain is like. I
mhm,
know what it is like to have this dream and this calling on your heart and your soul, and to let other people tell you you're not good enough to do it. And I
mhm.
want you to tell all those people, "Thank you very much. I'm gonna do it anyways." And
Yes.
I want you to just do whatever it is that is, you know, as long as it's legal and you're not hurting anybody, right?
Right.
Whatever crazy little idea pops into your head that will help you chase your dream and get to where you're ultimately going, follow each one of those little breadcrumbs wherever they lead you, because you have no idea where one little crazy idea is going to land you. I have walked into rooms I didn't know anybody and walked right up to the person I needed to speak to and had it just work out really well for me.
Mhm.
Follow those instincts. Those are there for a reason. Stop telling yourself that you can't do it. Whatever it is you want to do, we need you, and we need you to chase your dream.
Oh, I love that. Stop telling yourself, listen, that's so important. Stop telling
Mhm.
yourself because you know what? We can lie to everybody else, but we can't lie to ourselves.
No.
Stop telling
Mhm.
yourself that you can't because if you continue to say you can't, you won't. You
No.
won't. You can't speak negatively and positively about yourself at the same time. I absolutely love that. So, tell us about? So, I did so many questions going on in my head, and so many things I want to know. But first, tell us what is the book about, and what inspired you to write this book? And this is your first book, right?
It's my first book. It's a fictional life story about politics, religion, and a reality TV show called Who Wants to Be President. And the book came about right after the 2012 election. I couldn't wait for 16 because I couldn't wait for Hillary to win and have our first female president. I knew the Republicans were screwed. Their bench was shallow and they had nothing to throw up against her. And she was just going to mow down the competition. And I had this idea, it started out as a joke, that the only way the Republicans would win would be to start a reality TV show and find a candidate of the people. And you know, I self-published in January of 2015, a full 6 months before Trump announced his campaign,
Mhm.
and it really plays like
Wow, plays
it
like reality.
it plays like reality. The book spans 40 years.
Okay.
It does a flashback sequence almost where
Mhm.
it looks back into 2014 before all the chaos hit. And then it looks forward into the next 40 years and it lays out a bunch of different events. And as Trump showed up in 15 and things started happening, it looked really uncomfortable for me. It
Wow.
it really made me feel like, yeah, I had written it with the idea that I would manifest my own future, my own
Mhm.
destiny. I'm a Polk, and I too believe I can manifest my destiny.
Mhm.
And I was in a bad marriage with an unsupportive spouse who ripped the rug out from underneath me just before I published the book. And
Mhm.
it just changed the trajectory of everything. And I felt like I had set everything up and misfired, and then this jerk grabbed my dream and turned it into a nightmare. And it
Wow.
was like watching your dream turn into a nightmare. It was really painful and hard for me to watch, and that's what inspired the 2016 run. It was a write-in campaign. It didn't go anywhere, but it was very educational. The
Mhm.
state that I was in, there was no way it was going towards Hillary, and my protest vote, I know statistically did not impact the election, but I felt bad about it anyways. I felt bad about writing this book where this monster, this narcissist jumped in and exposed a lot of things we didn't really know were we weren't really paying attention to. There were a lot of problems that were already deep seated in our society that we just weren't really paying attention to. And
Mhm.
he put a spotlight on them. And
Mhm.
I had this beautiful image, in 2014 when I wrote this book, of a great direction that we could go in our country, a way to unite both sides, a way to get us to come together on common
A
issues.
happy ending of sorts.
A euphoria, a utopia kind
Yeah.
of scenario where we go through a battle, we go through a painful cycle, something happens, and it brings us all together, and we end up as a better society in the long run.
We're
And
kumbaya. Kumbaya.
yeah, yeah, I sprinkled some fairy dust on it, and
Everybody
I
got
took
these
out
rose-colored glasses
I
on and
I
all's
took out
right with the world.
I took out all the pedophiles. The world was a much better place in my book, I promise you. But reality's much stranger than fiction,
Yes.
and there's a lot of similarities. It's too similar for anybody to ignore,
Mhm.
and it's really important to pay attention as you're reading the book that the book was written a full 6 months before Trump even announced his campaign. So
Wow.
any similarities to actual events were unplanned, but it
Right.
does improve the readability of the book.
Wow. So it's just coincidental. So how does one go about becoming a write-in candidate? So let's start there. So you decided to, did you go, and so sometimes people when they go to the polls and they don't like the candidates, they just write somebody in. But
There's a
is that basically what you did? You just wrote your name in?
No, I went to the FEC.gov
Okay.
and I got the paperwork and I actually filed the paperwork. So every year there's between 2,000 and 2,500 people that file the FEC paperwork to run for president. And there, multiple different parties, there's independents, and then there's a write-in process. There's a documentation you have to do, signatures that have to be received. It's a whole process.
Mhm.
And once you put your name on a list like that, you're guaranteed to get some attention.
Hmm. So that was 2016,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So take us to 2000 to 2020. Trump was in there. He was out. What happened?
So I launched my 2020 presidential bid in 2018, in
Okay.
June of 2018. And I hired a marketing company through LinkedIn that did a very specific pitch for me.
Mhm.
And I don't think I realized how well connected and what a great platform LinkedIn
It
was,
is a very
because
big platform.
I exploded. I had thousands of connections. Amazing people offered to help me. And I was getting comfortable. I was doing interviews. I was developing my speaking skills, my elevator pitch, getting comfortable with sound bites.
Mhm.
And I hired this woman to be my campaign manager. She had worked for the DNC in 2016. She worked for the General Assembly. She had all these amazing credentials. I was so over the moon.
Mhm.
And it was she was everything I could have possibly dreamed of to be my campaign manager. I was so excited. And I don't think she was actually working for me.
Mm.
I I
He's
I
working for
think
the
she
enemy.
was I think she was too good to be true, and
Mm.
there's some truth to that. If something looks like it's too good to be true, it might be. Because as soon as I, really, once we signed contracts and I gave her a couple $1,000s, and she immediately started this story that changed my life. And I became so focused on helping her because the story was so complicated, and we trauma bonded. And
Mm.
as a rape survivor, she told me this rape story, and I trauma bonded with her, and I was so committed to helping her get justice. And the story was so scandalous.
Wow.
I thought it was going to ruin my life. And
Wow.
I started dialing back on interviews. I stopped doing my radio show. I was anticipating, I wasn't sure what was coming. I was scared of what was coming. And her story was so intense and powerful. I knew there was no way I was going to be able to avoid it, but I thought for sure it would just destroy my life.
Wow. Was her story true?
No, I don't think any bit of her story was true. I
Wow.
think all
So
of it
it
was
was
a lie.
so it was
Eh,
just a distraction.
well, it was more than just a distraction.
Wow.
This story, I have a great deal of sympathy for all the people that fell for those QAnon stories in 2020,
Mhm.
because this story she told me at the end of 18, early 19, absolutely destroyed my life. And it sounds like another chapter of some of those stories. When
Wow.
those stories really started exploding in 2020, I was really just like, what is going on? Who
Mhm.
did I hire?
Mhm.
Because I had had police investigations in other states. I had had FISA warrants pulled against me. She was blackmailing me and extorting me. I had so many investigations going on. I didn't think there was a possibility anybody would ever consider voting for me under any circumstances, especially not as a Democrat. This story that she told me was so scandalous. There's just no way Democrats would ever touch me. I'd have to switch teams for anybody to consider me, and I can't. I can't.
Wow.
And
Wow.
this it absorbed my entire life, and helping her cost me everything. It impacted my ability to see my children. It cost me financially. It cost my reputation. It impacted my mental health severely. And it has been really difficult to try to piece together and figure out what bit of truth I can. And it comes down to the fact that her story wasn't true. It was
Wow.
all made up. There's multiple people working together. I've filed police reports. I've contacted the FBI. There's more going on here than just your average scam artist, for sure.
Mhm.
This
Mhm. Mhm.
this this woman was paid to mistreat me. Nobody acts like this for free. Not
Wow.
for this long.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
and it eventually just got to the point where I acknowledged that if I was good enough for somebody to come after like this, I was good enough to keep going.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Oh, wow. Ooh, I love it. So, if you're just tuning in, we are talking to Charmin Smith. And Charmin, is it Charmin or Char? How am I pronouncing it correctly?
Charmin, just like the toilet paper, only with an S, because I'm smarter, I'm stronger, I smell better than the TP, and I will clean up DC. I got a whole list of jokes.
I
We don't
love it.
need just
I love
any
it.
old TP and DC. Trump,
Okay.
Pence, Trump, Putin. That generic stuff just spreads the mess around. If this pandemic taught us anything, red or
Yes.
blue, doesn't matter who, this country loves its Charmin, and we want this mess cleaned up.
Okay, I love it. I love it. You know what? I love your energy.
Thank you.
I love your energy. And you know what? There's something that you just said something that was so powerful. Sometimes there are people who have stories and we buy into their stories hook, line, and
Mhm.
sinker, and they're not true. And so we have to be careful. I do a show on a room on Clubhouse called The Power of Your Story. And we talk about knowing your audience, who's in your audience. And it's just as important when you're telling your story or when you're writing your story to know that there are going to be people who are not going to agree with your story.
Mhm.
There are going to be people who are listening to you, people who are listening to me, and they're not going to believe what I say. They're not going to believe what you say. There are people who don't believe, and close friends, and I found this out recently. When I was 4 years old, I went into the hospital and had my tonsils removed. And while there, a nurse came into my room after the tonsillectomy, which was a success, and jabbed me in the thigh with a needle. It poisoned the bone in my leg, and they were rushing me to surgery. They had to rush me to surgery. My leg swelled. I was 4 years old, so it swelled about this size, and my leg was swelling, and it was going to burst. And they told my mom that if they didn't get me to the OR to amputate my leg, it would burst and I would die. Well, they found out after about 8 hours of surgery, they found out that they didn't have to amputate my leg, but they could remove the bone, the smaller bone from my leg, and to relieve the pressure. But they told my mom I'd never walk again. So that started a tsunami of medical issues for me from the age of 4, and I'm 52. I'll be 53 in October. I don't know a day without pain. And so there are people who friends who didn't, they, I thought they understood and they believed me, but they really didn't. And I know this to be fact because there are some of those friends who are now going through some surgeries that didn't quite go right, some bone issues that is causing pain, and as we age. And so now they're experiencing that achy thrashing pain every day. And so now I get the phone call saying I didn't, I know how you feel. I know you know how I feel. But when I thought that they were understanding, they were really just, I don't know, they were just pretending, I guess. Some people are sympathizers when they don't understand, but people will pretend to share in your story, and you use the word that I'd not heard before.
Trauma bond.
You trauma bonded with them.
Trauma bond. You can
Trauma
trauma
bond.
bond with
And
somebody.
that's important. I've not heard that before, but that's, when somebody asked a question on the show I was on, when women are in abusive relationships and they find themselves getting into other abusive relationships, are they magnets? And the one lady said it's a spirit or something, but it's trauma bond. There's something within you that migrates, or that it's a magnet that draws you to that person or to the same relation until you break that bond.
Well, if the only thing you know is chaos,
That's all you used to.
peace seems like boredom.
Ooh.
And you might start a new relationship with somebody and you get them butterflies in your stomach and you think, oh, this is so great. I love the way this happens. This is always so fun in a relationship, but it don't ever last. That relationship turns into trouble. Those butterflies are not a good feeling. That is a warning. That is common sense leaving your body. You will put up with stupid stuff out of that one. As soon as you feel those butterflies split, I promise you, that is a lesson right there. Your body, if you don't know what a normal peaceful relationship is like, you will just get into bad relationships over and over again. You have to go into a hermit mode. You
Mm,
have to heal yourself and be alone, and that is the hardest thing. You have to break that butterfly addiction. There is a desire to feel that over and over again. That's what creates that cycle. And when you're in a cycle of abuse, it's a documentable pattern. There is a honeymoon phase where everything is wonderful. There is a buildup and there is an explosion. And the honeymoon phase gets shorter and shorter, the buildup gets longer and longer, and the explosions get worse and more violent. And once you identify the phase, you have to break it. You have to break the cycle. This is when we break up with bad people. We separate, we block, we do whatever we can. They advise you to imagine you're like a gray rock and you're just as boring and unappealing as you can possibly be to them, because they're feeding off of your energy.
mm,
They'll do things to spin you up and then sit back and watch and laugh, because they want to make you crazy. It
mm,
makes them feel more emboldened and empowered. And identifying that type of abuse is really important, because you don't have to react to every situation. Just because somebody does something to get a reaction out of you doesn't mean you have to give them what they want.
mm. Oh, I love that. You know what? You just gave me a new quote. I love this. If all you know is chaos, peace is boring. And that goes back to when people don't want to change. It's easier for me to go with what I'm accustomed to, because I know what's inside of this room. I
Mhm.
don't know what's going on the other side of the door. So I'm more reluctant, and that's why people stay in the positions that they're in life, at work. People have been on their jobs. I know people personally, and I know you do too. People
Mhm.
who've been on the same job, at the same job for years. They make decent money. They hate the job. They
Mhm.
have other talents. They hate the job. But they're too afraid to step out, because you get things like, well, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? When they don't realize that if you do that, if you do use that talent that you already have within you, and go after your passion, or as you said, follow your dream, then everything else falls into place. It doesn't mean that you don't have to work, but the work that I do now, I am so much more fulfilled than when I was working in corporate America, and I don't miss it. I do, I do, and it was a wonderful. I had a lot of great experiences. I learned a lot of transferable skills, but it was not my dream. And while I was there, everybody in the building knew that this was not my dream. This is what LaQuita does. This is who I am. I love that. I love that. So you hired the person to run your campaign. It turned out to be a whole bunch of cray cray, a whole bunch of turmoil, a whole bunch of unneeded, unexpected trauma. So
Mhm.
whatever happened to this person? Did she just disappear, or?
She was arrested 3 years ago this week. Actually, I'm having a little bit of an anniversary. Yesterday was the big day. She still stalks me and harasses me. There's still trouble. It's the long list of things that have continued to happen even
Wow.
after she was arrested. And I, have a gang of cyber stalkers, and people come to my house.
Wow.
She's there. I've never seen anybody quite like this, to be honest with you. Somebody's paying her to mistreat me.
Wow.
There's no I've never known anybody to act like this for this long. It doesn't make any sense. And so I've qualified to be on the ballot in Florida in November. So I'm in a strange holding pattern because I'm waiting for the chaos that will surely come.
Mhm.
I've had an influx of fake accounts recently, and I just block them because I'm not interested in playing her game. She's going to
Mhm.
come at me with a real account with real people. I'm not playing with her. I'm tired of her nonsense.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have a meeting tomorrow with a PAC that I'm very anxious about. If I play my cards right, this will work out very well for me.
Mhm.
I've filed enough FBI reports. There's enough things to investigate. There's enough crimes that have been committed. I fully expect her and her gang of goons to all be arrested.
Wow.
That is my expectation.
Wow.
And it is my expectation that I will go on and fulfill all my dreams. And
Wow.
this will just be part of my story that made me better and made me stronger.
Mhm.
These experiences, I wasn't really even paying attention to cyber stalking. And if
Mhm.
it hadn't have been for all these events, I wouldn't have come up with a whole list of ideas that we can do to protect people online. If
Mhm.
it hadn't have been for things that she did, I wouldn't have even known that those were things that people were doing to each other.
Wow.
And there has to be a way to treat each other, to protect ourselves online, to protect our kids online, to protect our identities, to protect us from people who are like this. They're just troublemakers.
Mhm.
They're just going out to trap people in criminal charges. They're just going out to ruin people's lives. They're
Mhm.
just going out to hurt people. Politics is a dirty game, and we know that there are dirty games being played with us, but everybody needs to act within the confines of the law.
Yes.
There
Why?
there were things she did to me that were so far beyond illegal, it wasn't even funny.
So why? Um. So we're just human beings. We're just human beings, just trying to follow. Just I'm not bothering anybody. I'm just doing me. So why do you think you? Why you? Simply because you were making noise in the campaign. Why you?
I
What
mean,
do you
I'm a presidential candidate. I'm gonna be your first female president. You
think?
get used to me, right? I'm a catch.
Hey, that's enough.
She screwed up the best deal of her life. I'm telling you, she burned the biggest bridge possible.
Wow.
And to keep coming after me, if she hadn't have damaged my relationship with my children the way she did, I probably would have gotten over it, and it wouldn't have been as bad as what it is. But
Mhm.
she messed up my relationship with my kids.
Wow. Wow.
And and she's a professional woman with a long list of degrees, and she never had any children, and I don't think she has a clue what she did.
Mhm. Mhm. You really don't think she has a clue what she did?
I don't think she has a clue how badly she made me mad.
Ah,
I think she has continued to see for the last 3 years as she has tried to strike me down and get me to just lay down and die, and I won't.
Wow.
I
Wow.
think every day when she tries to do something to me and it just bounces off me and falls back on her, right? Every illegal thing she does, she's going to get caught for. She's going to get in
Oh
trouble
yeah.
for. It's
Oh
going
yeah.
to come back on her. I'm not even worried about some of it because she's going to deserve prison time by the time all this is over with.
Wow. You know what? And that's right. You can't keep doing dirty dirt. You can't keep doing dirt and expect that nobody's watching.
That's right.
That
The,
it doesn't work that way.
the IRS is going to catch whoever did the fake tax return on me this year. Not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah. 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 You know, and it's funny because remember it was last year before when the pandemic and they had all those PPL loans
PPP
and
loans.
PPP loans, and all those people were filing and I reading all of these stories, nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know. They'll never
Well,
know. They'll never
one of
know.
the
And now every time I turn on the news, somebody's going to prison. The mayor in one of the cities here in Georgia went to jail I forgot how much time he got. So many people. I'm like, you cannot lie and say that you can't receive something. It's just crazy.
one
Crazy because
of the
nobody would know.
one of the fake accounts that she used to stalk my family member. I have a brother who's legally blind, and she created a fake account with his picture and stalked him and harassed him in his house and caused him problems with his neighbors. One of those that account, she reached out to me and offered me PPP loans. And so as soon as I got that communication from a fake account with my brother's picture on it, I reached out to my brother. I'm like, "You got an Instagram account? What's going on with you? What's this?" He said, "Girl, I'm blind. Why would I have an Instagram account?" Like, okay, well, you need to know somebody's created a fake Instagram account for
Right.
you. And it came in really good timing because he ended up having a problem with his neighbor. She did something really nasty to him. But because I had that email offering me PPP loans, I reported that to the FBI, and they cared about that a lot. They cared about that a lot. She's going down. She's done a bunch of really nasty things.
Wow. So what's going on? So what in between waiting? So you said you're waiting and you're on the ballot for November.
I'm on the ballot. I qualified.
Awesome, awesome.
Yep.
And so what are some of the things that should you be elected the first woman president of the United States of America? What are some of the things that you would go in and change?
Well, I just want to be very clear that the ballot that I've qualified for this November is not for president. It's Florida State Senate District 4. But as president, there's a lot of things I care really deeply about. I'm very, very passionate as an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse about revoking the statute of limitations on all sex-related crimes and allowing victims the opportunity to pursue justice against their abusers. It's one of my personal goals. I will be legalizing marijuana to such a point that it can't ever be used to destroy families again. The healthcare issue makes no sense to me. We have about a dozen different government healthcare programs, and we've got a dozen hands pulling money out of the same pot. We're going to combine all that together, make sure everybody can access healthcare based off of their Social Security taxes that they pay right now. And it's not going to be 80%. We're going to fix the way the pricing works for services, and everybody's going to be taken care of. Healthcare needs to be more than just physical health. It needs to be mental health, dental, vision, hearing. We need to take care of the whole body. We need to be smarter about the way we take care of people. I said earlier that I was a mortgage underwriter. One of the things that's a really big issue in our country is a housing crisis.
Yes.
And one of the problems that isn't really being talked about, and it's slipping under the radar, is that we have a bunch of international investors coming over, pricing Americans out of the market and purchasing these houses and leaving them empty. We're looking at a very different type of housing crisis being created by our enemies because they want to cause problems in our country. I have a problem with that and a solution that I guarantee is going to tick some people off. There's a lot of different things that we can do to improve the quality of life for the people who live here. We have to have a serious conversation about race and the way people are treated in this country. Our education system is lacking, and we need to make sure that we are educating our citizens to the best of our ability. become painfully obvious the 12-year program that we have right now isn't enough, but we're not using it as effectively as we could be. We could be producing well-educated citizens by the end of a 12 or a 14-year cycle, well
Mhm.
enough to get them into any kind of job they want, with the exception of being a doctor or a lawyer or
Mhm.
some sort of specialized training. But we should be able to provide that to people who care about going to work. And all of us care about going to work. We all work and produce and provide and help our community survive. And we all provide value. We want everyone to be able to live a respectful life. And
Mhm.
right now, we're pricing people out of life. Nowhere in this country can minimum wage produce enough money at 40 hours a week to rent a house or an
Right.
apartment. The housing crisis that we've seen, the cost of living expenses that we've seen skyrocket all over the place, there's a long list. I should probably get it down to like three main things, but
Mhm.
the budget's going to be a big deal for me. And that budget encompasses a lot of things, like our military budget.
Mhm.
One of the things that we learned during the 2008 housing crisis is that your house can't be 50% of your budget. You won't be able to afford to pay any of your other bills. And there's
Exactly.
no reason for the military to get 50% of our budget either.
So let me. That's I like those. I like those
I
plans.
like to
So
connect the dots for people.
yes, and that's connecting the dot. So let me ask
Mhm.
you a question. What do you think about all of the mass shootings? What's your thoughts on that?
Well,
Other than heartbreaking.
other than heartbreaking, other than how do we get people to stop killing each other?
Mhm.
And the Second Amendment is very interesting the way it is written, with a well regulated militia necessary for the protection of our free state. And I personally believe that we have the best regulated militia in the history of the world: the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the National Guard. We have exceptional ability to protect our free state. Our militia is second to none.
Mhm.
The only people jeopardizing our free state are the free people who refuse to be regulated to the standard of our militia.
Mhm. Mhm.
Our
Mhm.
military has very strict regulations on who can and can't use what gun and when. Their rules for engagement are very particular. And anybody who wants to own a gun, and anybody who has ever used a gun to defend themselves, likes a gun. And I like
Mhm.
a gun too. But
Mhm.
I don't need an AR-15. And
Right.
I don't think an 18-year-old does either, especially
Right.
if he hasn't done any of the regulating the militia would require for him if they drafted him.
Mhm. Mhm.
The idea that background checks don't exist or are so limited is a real problem. The
Mhm.
idea that we're just going to let an 18-year-old get a couple $1,000s worth of guns and nobody's going to ask his uh, guardian or whoever's he's living
Right.
with if they want him to have those guns,
Right.
or where he came up with this money to purchase the guns. There's a lot of questions that I want to ask, I want to understand. And there has to be some agencies that have the ability to study and research this. They have to be allowed to do that. We
Mhm.
have to be able to rely on the opinions of experts to help reduce this. But in the meantime, there's some other things that we could do.
Everybody has a part to play. So with that question, I cannot not ask you about what do you think about the police shootings? There are a lot of shootings where black men are the victims of those shootings, are dying in police custody. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not just black men, but it is across the board, and we
Okay.
have got to do something to end this. The police are a valuable part of our community, and we have to be able to trust them, and we have to be able to count on them to protect us. Now, we've seen it with this Uvalde shooting in Texas.
Mhm.
Even the police are afraid of the guns. The
Yeah,
we
right,
Texas cops, not just any cop.
right.
Texas cops. Okay, the biggest, the baddest there is.
Texas Rangers.
Right. The biggest, the baddest there is. And they were scared. We have to have a better understanding of what the rules of engagement are. And offloading 90 rounds in somebody in the middle of the street, that's a safety issue for a lot of different reasons beyond the fact that we're not executing people in the street.
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
we 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 have a really good justice system if we use it appropriately. It's not the best. It could definitely use some improvements, but we can't have we can't have situation. This has to end. This is
We have to.
ridiculous.
And you know what, everybody has a part to play. Everybody has a part to play, and you have to figure out what's my part. And in order
Mhm.
for me to figure out what part I'm going to play, first of all, I have to know what's going on. I have to do my research. I can't just listen to this news station and this news station, because everybody's going to have their own perspective. So you got to trust, you got to verify, you got to do your research, and then make informed decisions. And that's what the problem is. A lot of people they react. They don't act on the informed decisions because they don't take the time to research and get all of the information and all of the data. So everybody has a part to play. My role is not in politics. My role might be to teach the young people to, here's what the rules are. Here is what happens when you break the rules, and to train them to, this is the steps. What do you want to do? You want to be an attorney? You want to be a lawyer? You want to be whatever? We need lawmakers. We need people who are going to enforce the laws. We need people who are going to write the laws, who are going to rewrite the laws, who are going to judge fairly. So we all have a part to play. There are some people whose role is to picket and to protest. Everybody can't picket and protest. Somebody has to be there to tell the story. Somebody has to. We all have a part to play.
Mhm.
And knowing what that is, first we have to determine, well, what's going on? And that's the problem that I have. People make decisions based on, well, did you hear what so and so said? And sometimes I'm like, well, where does it say? I like to research. So the Google, I call it the Google is there. You can go there quickly, but you cannot trust that that's where you get all your information from, because it's information overload.
Mhm.
So research and compare notes and research. But Charmin, what happens a lot of the times is that I don't like something that happened, or something that happened to me, or something that happened to my friend. So I come home, or I come into my circle of friends, and we have the conversation in the circle of friends, and that's where it stops.
Yep.
It doesn't go any further. We're not voting to help change the laws. We're not speaking up when we should. We're not going to the town hall meetings. We're not going to the neighborhood unions. We're not doing those things. It's staying right there, and it can't continue to stay right there. It can't continue to stay in those doors, because the only thing that happens is when you leave the room, it goes into the walls, and that's where it dies. So we have to fight. And I stick to what you said earlier. Chasing dreams. You're chasing your dreams. So what other dreams are you chasing, other than politics? What other kind of things you like to do? You have a second book coming out, right? I think you
I
said.
do. I've actually delayed releasing it because I was anticipating some drama, and there was a couple little pieces of information I didn't know I needed until just recently. And I've always got another book working, which is good for me. But for me, it's really just about healing my relationship with my kids, healing my relationship with myself, improving my relationship with God, and working on finding ways to bring people together.
Yeah.
That is something that really weighs on me. Like, if we could just get people laughing and joking and talking together again, that's going to be really important to us. We've lost so much over the last few years, pointing fingers at each other, falsely accusing people of stuff, and just picking fights so that we can start a war and kill each other and not have to deal with anybody anymore.
Right. Right.
If we wanted to start a war, we'd have been shooting each other more. Right? We would have seen a lot worse than what we're already seeing. We don't really want a war. We
Mhm,
don't really want to fight with each other. We
mhm.
don't really want to go back to the way it was 200 years ago when white men could just treat everybody like crap and get away with it.
Right.
We don't really want to do that anymore. That's no fun to us. None of us want to participate in it. There's a very small group of people who are enjoying that, and they want to keep that up. And we have to get people talking. We have to get people laughing. We have to get people together, and we got to vote the jerks out. There's a very small portion of people that show up every election. And those small portion of people, it's a very small turnout for midterm elections, which is what we have this year in 22. It is consistently the farthest right-wing Republicans that show up and they vote for jerks. And this is how we get the bunch of bad stuff that keeps going on. And we have got to get people at this election this year. There are primaries in August. We got to get people showed up. We got to get people to make sure that they're registered to vote. We got to make sure, even if it's not a great candidate, it's not the best person, it's not the perfect thing, we vote. I'm sorry, we vote Democrat right down the list. We know what the Republicans are going to do to us. They've told us Social Security is going away. They don't care about health care. They only care about birth and babies, and mostly white babies. They're going to take away gay marriage. They're going to take away interracial marriage. They're already taking away birth control. You know, they ain't going to provide any daycare or food stamps. We have to get rid of these people. They have some dirty ulterior motives that are not in the benefit of everybody. And we just have to buckle down and get everybody we know to the ballot in November, because they've got to go. And especially in places like Florida, where I live, and you have a qualifying period. If you don't get on the ballot, even as a write-in candidate, it doesn't matter who writes their name in on the ballot in November. If they're not on the ballot, it's done. And there's a bunch of Republicans that have run unopposed. So they're going to get their seat, and they're going to do what they want to do, and they're going to do everything they can to destroy this country.
You know, one of the things that I say, and I tell people this all the time, you have to know where you are spiritually. If you have a spiritual compass, your moral compass, I have a moral compass, and I have to vote my moral compass. And that's not your business. That's not the other person's business. I am going to vote my moral compass, because at the end of the day, God is who I have to answer to.
Mm-hmm.
And I am more concerned with what God says about me and how God thinks about me than I am anybody else. And here's the thing. All of the people that are in office, that are doing the wrong things, that's in there, that's been in there, that's going in there, everybody who's doing harm to people, who are making these bad decisions, who are destroying lives all the way around the board, they have to answer, whether you believe that or not, whether you are atheist, whether you are a believer or an unbeliever. You cannot get away from having the consequence of, what did I do? We all have to give an answer. What did I do? I tell my children all the time, you know what? It doesn't matter if your friend is doing the wrong thing. You know the right thing to do. Do the right thing. And the right thing isn't popular.
No,
It
it
isn't
is
popular.
not.
People are
It's
gonna look and
not.
say, okay, you're, and that makes you a target. So
Mm-hmm.
Charmin, you're a target.
Yep.
So just because you're wanting to do what you feel is right, you're a target, because I'm wanting to do what I feel is right for no other reason. No other reason. I'm a nice person, a nice, sweet, kind person. I ain't never bothered nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But yet and still there are people who for no reason, who have said things, done things. And man, if I can, you know, when on Facebook, when you say something that the Facebook world doesn't agree with, you start getting these sanctions, where this does not meet our community standards, or they start kind of sanctioning your post, and you start getting that little tap on the wrist, and you're like, okay, and what happened in all the years I've had Facebook? For the last month, it seems like every other post, and it's nothing. It is absolutely nothing. They sanction. So when you're doing the right thing, people don't like that, and things start to happen. You just have to keep doing the right thing, doing what you know is right.
We do. Speaking truth to power is hard. You're going to make enemies, right? As a Christian woman, I am well aware how hard it is to speak to other Christians, right? It is a very difficult time
Yeah.
because everybody's got their own perspective on that book. And it's starting to become really obvious that as the book has been changed through the years, things have been taken out. People are finding old books on purpose just so they can go back and reread the message the way it was initially intended to be given. And people are waking up, and we have to we have to reach across to our friends, and we have to make them remember, yes, yes, the people doing wrong are going to get in trouble. They will have their time. We have to live with them until that happens. And we don't get to just sit down and let them mistreat us.
Right.
We know what the truth is. We know what the right is. And we can see how they're manipulating the same information to use it against us. And we have to lean into the right thing,
And
right?
we're
That
not doormats.
no,
We are not
no, we
doormats.
have got to stand up and fight. The good Lord helps those that help themselves, and we got to fight. Otherwise, we're going to end up right back in the situation that a lot of us have come out of. None of us want to go back to the way
Yes.
things were hundreds of years ago. There's
Yes.
a lot of things because we're kind of tap dancing around religion. And there's a lot of things coming out. People are talking about the founding fathers and how they were Christians, but that's not true. The founding fathers weren't Christians. And there's a really important story that people aren't paying attention to. We don't ever think about it or talk about it. And King James, the King James Bible, he was gay and black, number one. All right. The Protestants were pretty cool people. But as soon as he died, the Catholics took over England. And the new queen, her first mission was to turn England from Protestant to Catholic. And the editor of the Bible, who refused to become a Catholic, was immediately burned alive. His son and grandson were on the Mayflower. They were escaping religious persecution. They brought their own version of the Bible. That man, John Rogers, the editor of the Bible, his son and grandson who were on the Mayflower. This man is the grandfather of about a dozen American presidents, and George Washington is the first. His children and grandchildren knew why it was so important to keep religion out of politics and that you could not allow religion to control the state. But our founding fathers were Rogerines. They were Quakers. They created their own religion because they didn't like what the Protestants were doing, and they sure weren't going to be Catholic. So when the Mayflower colony started to take over and the Protestants started to get really right and really religious and really Puritan, the Rogerines were running around making fun of them. The Washington, the founding fathers, our founding fathers knew our enemy a lot better than we do. There's a reason why they didn't want religion taking over. The
Yeah.
Monroe Doctrine, our third president, nobody ever talks about him. He wrote
But
a
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We have
I'll give a
3 minutes.
lesson.
I know you going, and I love that. I love that because we can have a whole show on the Bible, and from where I stand and what I believe in. And we know that the Bible was written by inspiration of God. We know that, and you believe it. You believe what the word. You either believe what the word says or you don't believe what the word says. But it also says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." You have to trust, you have to read, you have to rightly divide the word, you have to study the word. You cannot take the word that somebody, I can't shove it down your throat. You can't shove it down my throat. I have to do my research, and I have to know what I believe in, why I believe in what I believe in. And the Bible is there. It's written for us. And at the end of the day, we are all still going to have to give an account for what we do in the body. And it has been such a pleasure. I got to have you come back so we
I
can finish
know.
this conversation. It has been a pleasure. We have like 2 minutes. Please tell people how they can connect with you.
You can find me at charminsmith.com. You can find me on Twitter at Smith Charmin or Taming the Tita. If you look for Taming the Tita, you can probably find me on every social media platform. I'm easy to reach out to. If you want to find me, you can. I look forward to speaking to anybody. And I hope that you'll buy a copy of my book.
Yes, please,
Feel
please
free to
do.
donate to my campaign. I promise I'm the only Charmin in Act Blue. Um,
Please do. Please reach out to Charmin. I heard her. We met on the book slam. I heard her read. I thought her story was amazing, and I am purchasing your book. I haven't purchased it yet. I found it today on your website, so I'm going to purchase your book. I can't wait to read it. But again, thank you so much. I know you are super busy. It has been a plump, please, and pleasure. And I am your host, LaQuita Parks. Listen, if you have a story, and I know that you do, and you need help with that story, reach out to me. Let me help you take that story from a thought to a realization. Whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, share your story, tell your story. There's power in your story. Somebody is waiting on the other end of your story to heal from their story and chase those dreams. So it's been a plump, pleasing pleasure, better than a triple decker peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Till next time, be good.
Allow us at Eddie B Productions to capture, create, and celebrate all of your greatest moments. Let us turn your joy into memories that will last forever. As we remember our beloved Eddie Blick Jr., the very reason we do it all, we aim to put a smile on your face and also your heart. Whether a birthday party, wedding planning, organizing an event, or photography, we can service all your needs. You can follow us on Instagram at Eddie B Productions, email us at eddieb_productions93 at outlook.com, or call us at 410-303